During our vow renewal, I muttered to Michael, "I never actually loved you. Not even at the beginning. And to be honest, it was all worthwhile when you saw the expression on his face." I'm Samantha, a 32-year-old woman who has been slowly dying, within while feigning to be the ideal wife for the past 8 years. We first connected when I was working 60-hour weeks to garner attention from higher-ups at my job. Michael was practical because he had a steady career in property management, was attractive, and above all, he revered the earth I walked on. I made a compromise between us. I was aware of that back then, and I am certain of it now. My mother insisted on a large production for our wedding. We were hailed as the ideal pair by everyone. If only they knew that when Michael would babble on about dull work-related topics, I would roll my eyes behind his back. Just before I walked down the aisle, my maid of honor Paige whispered, "Are you sure about this?" I can still remember that. "He's a good guy," I said with a smile, and it wasn't a lie. However, being good does not imply being exciting, ambitious, or deserving of someone like me. The initial years weren't too bad. Because of Michael's income, I was able to take chances at work, such as declining that lateral move that would have increased my income but decreased my visibility. I gave the impression that I was giving up something for our future, but in reality, all I was doing was exploiting the financial buffer he gave me, and he loved it. When Thaddeus entered our department 3 years ago, everything was different. That man was ambitious indeed. After work, we started having beverages instead of working lunches. Not much, if anything, happened physically, but the connection was strong. Michael had no suspicions. He would just warm up my food and inquire about my day like a well-trained puppy, even if I had arrived home late and smelled like booze and luxury cologne. I was the devoted, encouraging wife in public. At business gatherings, I would hug Michael's arm, chuckle at his cheesy jokes, and share anniversary tributes on social media with the description, "So blessed to do life with my best friend." Gag me. But I was unable to conceal my displeasure behind closed doors. Knowing that would make him feel inferior, I would inquire, "Really? That's all they're offering for the promotion? Did you even try to negotiate?" When Michael realized I was drifting away, he came up with the romantic idea of renewing our vows for our 8th anniversary. The fact that he planned it for months should have been my first indication that he had suspicions. The ceremony, which included our closest friends and family, a backyard garden party, and fairy lights, was lovely despite being smaller than our wedding. Michael went on to say that marrying me was the best choice he had ever made in his heartfelt vows. I performed the generic vows I had discovered online the previous evening when it was my turn. Something inside of me suddenly exploded when Michael held me up close during our first dance and murmured, "I've never loved anyone the way I love you." It might have been 8 years, or it might have been the 3rd glass of champagne. He straightened his arms around me, and before I could stop, "Myself," I muttered back. "I never actually loved you. Not even at the start." But Michael's face, God, his face, the song continued. It wasn't shock or even rage. This realization came gradually, as if he had known all along but had been deceiving himself. I nearly felt awful for a moment. Nearly. Instead, I experienced a surge of strength as if the world had not ended, and I had finally expressed what I had been thinking for years. No issues were noticed by our guests. I've always maintained appearances well. Michael, however, slept in the guest room that night. I had the strangest impression that I had finally seen the real Michael when I saw his face the following morning, pallid and hollow-eyed. Someone who could potentially be a worthy opponent, someone who saw right through me. The weeks following our vow renewal were unique. It was as if we were playing a strange game of chess, in which neither of us looked at the board. Michael ceased, inquiring about my day and about his own. After he got home from work, he would get himself a drink and hide in his home office until it was time to go to bed. I initially allowed him to have his little outburst. Men are so sentimental, aren't they? However, by the 3rd week, I was growing tired of his silence. Following the vow renewal, Colette inquired about the status of our 2nd honeymoon period, while we were having dinner with our friends Paxton and Colette. Michael answered, Actually, I think Samantha and I are finally seeing each other clearly for the first time. He then grinned at me as if we were exchanging inside jokes before I could come up with a cute narrative. His arrogant expression made me want to slap him. I stopped trying to hide the fact that I was spending more time with Thaddeus. Our code for dinner or drinks became working late. He would constantly tell me how undervalued I was, how someone with my talent ought to be directing by now, and how Michael was obviously preventing me from reaching my full potential. Indeed, there were instances when I told Michael I was at a conference in a hotel, in his car one evening, and in the workplace after everyone had left. I felt no remorse. Michael, meanwhile, was evolving in ways that unnerved me. Without telling me where he was going, he began going to the gym and going out for drinks with pals. I once discovered texts from a person named Ren on his phone when I checked it while he was taking a shower. Nothing specific, just scheduling a meeting. A friend from college was Ren's response when I casually asked him who he was over breakfast before returning to his coffee. Things became heated when Michael began to question our financial situation. He saw withdrawals from our joint account, including beautiful dinners, weekend getaways, and gifts I had purchased for Thaddeus. I found out the following day that he had taken half of the funds out of our savings account. He calmly said that he had formed his own account to safeguard his assets when I called him angry, as if I were a criminal. I yelled at him about marriage and trust being a collaboration. "That's rich coming from you, Sam. By the way, how's Thaddeus these days?" He said after listening attentively for a moment before hanging up. It dawned on me then that Michael was not only injured, but also getting ready for battle. The tipping point was an Aspen Company retreat. This time, Michael shocked me by accepting the +1 invitation, even though he rarely attended these company functions. The first night was quite uneventful. In addition to making my employer laugh with a story about a property tragedy that genuinely came off as interesting, Michael enchanted everyone with his expertise in wine. Everything fell apart on day 2. Before our presentation, I had to meet Thaddeus at the hotel restaurant to prepare breakfast. Thaddeus and Michael were sitting there drinking coffee like old friends when I arrived. Thaddeus's expression was like a deer caught in headlights. "Hope you don't mind," Michael remarked nonchalantly. When he stressed the word work, I felt sick to my stomach. He knew. "I ran into Thaddeus in the lobby and thought I'd join your breakfast meeting. I'd love to see how you two work together." Michael was in the front row when I presented to Thaddeus later that day. We had spent months developing a new marketing plan, which we were presenting to the senior team. However, Thaddeus continued to make mistakes and forget transitions that we had practiced dozens of times. I wanted to scream every time I looked at Michael because he was observing us with such serene intensity. At the gala dinner that evening, Michael was incredibly charming with my coworkers. My boss's wife added, "You're so lucky. Michael is utterly devoted to you," as he went to bring us drinks. I grinned broadly and excused myself to the toilet, where I texted Thaddeus, "Meet me on the terrace in 5. I waited for 15 minutes, but he never showed up. Rather, Michael discovered me holding 2 brand new drinks. As he handed me a gin and tonic, he said, "Looking for someone?" I was about to respond when he added, "Thaddeus left. Apparently, he got a call that his position is being reconsidered after today's presentation." He eventually addressed the elephant in the room on the plane ride home, saying, "Shame." Silently, "I know about you and Thaddeus," he said. "I've known for months. I could have denied it. Instead, I went on offense." "Well, if you were more exciting, more ambitious, more anything, maybe I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere," I said in a whisper. "You drove me to this with your mediocrity," Michael said. I thought he would fall apart and plead for another opportunity, like he always did. In contrast, he simply gave me a pitying glance. He put on his headphones and closed his eyes, putting a stop to the conversation. "I used to think you were out of my league, Sam. Now I realize we're not even playing the same sport." Michael took up residence in the guest room once we arrived home. I tried every tactic that had previously worked, including trying to woo him, implying that perhaps we might try for a child and wailing about how lonely I felt. Nothing was successful. I therefore chose to ruin his life, as any sane person would. The next month was set aside for Michael's major presentation to the partnership committee. I started out modestly, inadvertently erasing files from the shared home computer and concealing his notes. I escalated, though, because he had backed everything up. Claudia, the wife of the senior partner, was someone I knew from a number of corporate events. I lightly conveyed my worries about Michael's drinking problem when I phoned her for coffee. I responded, "It's been getting worse," as tears welled up in my eyes. Claudia stroked my hand and said, "I'd never normally say anything, but we all know how stressful a partnership role can be. I'm just worried about him." She also pledged to keep the conversation private with her husband. The mission has been completed. Michael was promoted in spite of my sabotage. I should have been pleased, because we would have more money and status. However, I didn't feel like I had won. I learned of it via a colleague's congratulations email to the department. He didn't even phone to tell me. We were invited to Paxton and Colette's for dinner that evening in honor of their anniversary. With my hair blown out and my makeup on, I looked stunning in the red dress that Michael previously claimed to like. Michael, who claimed to be coming directly from work, came separately. He brought flowers and a pricey bottle of wine for Colette when he got there, but nothing for me. Colette and I cleaned up the kitchen after supper while Paxton showed Michael around their remodeled garage. I held up Michael's phone to Colette as she inquired about our vow renewal, and it buzzed on the counter with a text from Ren that said, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, my place at 7. Colette was uneasy as she said, "See? This is what I've been dealing with. He's been cheating on me." "Sam, maybe you shouldn't read his messages." I needed Colette on my side. "Oh, please," I said sourly. "Like you wouldn't if you thought Paxton was stepping out. Michael's been distant for months, staying at hotels, constantly texting this woman. Connect the dots." I was getting a lot of steam going when I noticed Colette was ignoring me. Paxton and Michael stood in the doorway. There was silence on the journey home until we pulled into our driveway. "Samantha," Michael stated calmly, "it's time to go." I discovered Michael packing a suitcase inside when he turned to face me and said, "Ren is my therapist. I've been seeing her weekly to deal with the aftermath of our marriage." I demanded, "What are you doing?" Michael didn't even raise his head. "I'm staying at a hotel tonight. Tomorrow I'm seeing a lawyer. This marriage is over, Sam." I sneered, attempting to recover control of the situation. "Because I read your text? That's a bit dramatic." At last he looked directly into my eyes. "No, because I just watched you try to convince our friends I'm cheating on you to cover for your own affair. Because you tried to sabotage my career when your manipulation stopped working. Because you told me you never loved me. And the sad thing is, I think that's the only honest thing you've said." I've stated for years that I didn't think Michael would leave for good. After 8 years of marriage, men like him don't leave without a fight. However, when I woke up, the following morning, I found divorce papers on the kitchen counter along with a note that read, "My lawyer will contact yours." No, it wasn't. "I'm sorry it came to this. Maybe we can work it out." It was just the facts. I spent the day preparing my return after calling in ill to work. Before he turned everyone against me, I had to get ahead of this story. I set up a lunch date with my boss, telling him about Michael's domineering ways, and how I was afraid of reprisals at work now that we were splitting up. I then gave every one of our close friends a call. I took the side of the mistreated wife with some. I made references to Michael's anger management problems with others, which ultimately led me to recommend a breakup for my own sake. I didn't immediately make the separation public on social media. It would appear desperate. Rather, I shared an old picture from our honeymoon, along with a mysterious statement about the unexpected twists and turns of life. I then presented a quotation about how to find strength when things are tough. Supportive comments poured into the comment area, with most people presuming Michael had done something that could not be forgiven. Coworkers offered to cover my meetings, brought me coffee when I got back to work, and nodded sympathetically at me in the hallway. In the meantime, even though Michael was now a partner, he was not invited to office lunches. It was a sense of triumph. The company's spring gala followed. My first formal presentation since our split was something I had been dreading. I lavished money on a brand new gown, had my hair done by a competent stylist, and readied myself to confront Michael and all the rumors. Michael bringing a date was something I wasn't expecting. Colette, our friend, Paxton's wife, wasn't just any date. They entered together, obviously coupled but without any romantic or intimate touches. As everyone pondered this development, the room fell silent. A little later, Paxton came in, apparently unconcerned by this arrangement as well. At the bar, Colette came over to me. "I wanted to tell you straight," she said. "I broke up with Paxton 3 months ago. As we worked things out, we kept everything confidential. Throughout this time, Michael has been a great friend to both of us." My thoughts were racing. "What the heck, even though my husband and I are still legally married, you're dating him now?" I growled. "No, Sam. All we are is buddies. He told me how anxious he was about tonight, so I'm here to support him," she said softly. "However, I believe you should be aware that individuals are beginning to compare notes regarding the various tales you have been sharing." The 9 a.m. The following morning's appointment with my supervisor was short and heartbreaking. Thaddeus had left, but not before I had sent him emails containing sensitive company information and a record of our connection. I wasn't being fired by the corporation since the HR nightmare wouldn't be worth it. However, I was being moved to the Houston office and demoted, accept it or reject it. After 2 weeks, as I prepared to leave for Houston, I chose to perform one final act. I sent Michael a text to arrange a coffee date so we could clarify some specifics in person. I was shocked when he said yes. Michael showed up in new clothing I didn't recognize, refreshed and focused, looking better than he had any right to. He hardly appeared to notice that I had spent an hour making myself look nice in the hopes of reminding him of what he was losing. I said, "Thank you for meeting," but my confidence instantly wavered. "I wanted to talk about the house. Make sure you're being fair about the valuation." Michael gave a nod. "The appraisal is in the folder my lawyer sent. It's actually above market rate." I confessed, "That's not really why I asked you here. I wanted to understand how things got so bad between us." Quietly, he murmured, "You told me you never loved me. Not even at the start." I was upset. I took a step back. People say things they don't mean when they're hurt. "What were you hurt about, Sam? What had I done to hurt you?" Michael asked, observing me closely. I redirected because I didn't have an answer that wouldn't reveal more truth than I was comfortable with at that precise moment, when everything was meant to be great. "I heard you've been spending a lot of time with Colette." "She's a friend going through a difficult time, like I was," I said directly. "Are you sleeping with her?" Michael let out a sigh. "No, but it wouldn't be your business if I were. We're getting divorced, remember?" I answered, "Because you gave up on us," with a little lift in my voice. "I gave up?" Michael's calmness faltered a little. "You cheated, lied, manipulated me, tried to destroy my career, and told me you never loved me. What exactly was I supposed to be fighting for?" This time, I could feel the tears coming. I started over and stated, "I'm moving to Houston," letting my voice break. "Don't you feel anything about that? About me leaving?" Michael was silent for a while. At last, "I feel relieved," he murmured. "For both of us. You never wanted the life we had, Sam. Maybe now you can build one you actually want." Then he left, without turning around, leaving me alone to realize that he was truly done. No impassioned last-minute reunion, no dramatic last clash. Just over. Houston was meant to be my new beginning. A new job, a new city, and a new apartment in one of those opulent mid-rises with a fitness facility and pool on the roof. For me, this was an improvement. I had always desired a life of sophistication and independence like this. A sterilized, one bedroom that reverberated with emptiness was the reality. It was such a big downgrade that I was now reporting to coworkers who had been warned about me before I came. They were 5 years my junior. Their eyes never met their courteous grins. I was reading through Michael's social media when I got home from one especially awful date with a guy who talked about his Bitcoin investments for 2 hours. His profile was still largely work-related, with few posts and no updated relationship status. He was tagged in a firm photo, though, and I clicked on it. Occasion. And there she was, Colette, standing behind him, grinning down at him as she looked up at him with clear adoration. Anyone with eyes could see it even if they weren't touching or posing as a couple. Together, they were. As any sensible person would, I made a phony profile and messaged Colette directly. Michael Reynolds has herpes, just so you know. My close buddy's ex-wife wanted you to know. My phone rang the following morning with an unknown number on it. The voice said, "Is this Samantha Reynolds?" "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Julia Winters. I'm an attorney representing Colette Harlow in a defamation case. We've traced several harassing messages to your IP address and phone number." HR sent me an email that evening asking for a meeting the next morning. My greatest worries were validated during the meeting. After 3 months in Houston, my numbers were appalling. A performance development plan with monthly reviews was being implemented for me. I would be fired if, within 90 days, things didn't improve. For almost 12 hours, I decided to concentrate on my task and go on. The following morning, I received an email notification that Michael had changed his relationship status to in a relationship with Colette Harlow. Many individuals, including some who had attended our wedding, left heartfelt congratulations on the post. Something broke inside of me. I spent the day planning, scheduling a flight home for the weekend, and calling in sick to work. Michael had another thing coming if he believed he could simply take my place and enjoy a happy life with Colette. I set up shop at a cafe across from their favorite brunch location on Sunday morning. As expected, they showed up there at 10:30, strolling hand in hand in the direction of the eatery. I made my approach after waiting until they were seated on the patio. "Seriously," I said, "you couldn't even wait until the divorce was final?" They didn't react the way I had anticipated, which infuriated me. Both of them appeared worn out, as though they had anticipated this and were prepared to face it head-on. Michael spoke softly. "Sam, please don't make a scene." Colette excused herself, and Michael took his place. "Nothing happened between us until months after you left," he stated. "Not that it's any of your business. We're getting divorced, remember? Your choice, not mine." For a long time, Michael stared at me. "I want you to admit you moved on to Colette too fast," I continued, "that all your talk about commitment and vows was just talk. Is that really why you flew back here? To police the timeline of when I started dating again?" He was shaking his head. "This isn't healthy, Sam." Tears threatened to well up in me. He went for his wallet and dropped money on the table. "So, that's it? 8 years together and you've just moved on like I never existed?" "No, Sam. I haven't forgotten our 8 years. I've just finally accepted them for what they were. I need to go. Please don't contact Colette again. The restraining order is still an option." That night, exhausted and embarrassed, I went back to Houston. My mobile phone, I had a ton of unanswered work calls and no job to go back to. When I arrived at the office on Monday, my access card was not functional. My manager came down to personally deliver the news after security called. I was being fired with immediate effect. The months that followed were a haze of growing debt, unsuccessful job interviews, and unemployment. In my industry, word had gotten out. After her divorce, the unstable woman melted down and no one wanted to hire her. In a neighborhood where I didn't feel secure strolling alone at night, I had to move to an even smaller flat. Michael and Colette announced their engagement on social media 6 months after our altercation. Their lovely journey from friendship to love was celebrated in the post, which received hundreds of comments and thousands of likes. It was the timing, not their joy, that shattered my heart. Exactly 1 year had passed since I had said those deadly words to Michael during our vow renewal when the announcement was made. He had picked this date on purpose. He wanted to make up for the day I had destroyed and replace the negative memory with a positive one, so it wasn't just that he had moved on. The worst thing? I was the only one I could blame for the first time. I had never shown Michael the kind of love he deserved. I had manipulated, sabotaged, lied, and cheated. He was, the one who had outgrown me, even if I had felt I was too good for him. I would like to claim that this insight transformed me, that I experienced a deep awakening, and that I improved as a person, but that would be telling another lie, and I've had enough of those. To be honest, I'm still resentful and believe that I was given a bad deal. I'm still wondering if things had gone differently, Michael would have been lusting for me from a distance while I was celebrating a new engagement. I suppose some folks simply do not learn. They choose self-deception even when the universe presents them with the ideal chance to see themselves plainly. Samantha, that is who I am. The woman who believed she deserved better and threw away everything. She owned. The female whisperer said, I never truly loved you.